Let's just get started with the basics. When did you first get into spotting?
Spotting started back.
Cameraman.
Yeah, spotting started back right when I first got hired at Dale Earnhardt Incorporated. One of the first things I did when I got in the garage was wore a headset, and actually worked on the race cars, and then had the opportunity in the late '90s to do practices. And then once it started from there, it just escalated from doing practices to doing some standalone races, and then being a full-time spotter in early 2000.
Right. What was it about spotting that piqued your interest? Why did you really get into that?
It was interesting as I listened to when I wore headsets in the garage. It was a job that I always wanted to be a fabricator. Growing up, I can't fabricate. I couldn't. I'm the guy who always says I can't draw a straight line with a ruler. But as a spotter, I knew that I could articulate what I was seeing from my pilot background. I knew I could talk on the radio. And it was just a matter of being able to do it to where the driver appreciated what information I've given him. Because, honestly, if I'm giving great information, but I'm talking about the stock market and the driver doesn't want to hear about that, it's worthless. So it was being able to give the driver the information that he wanted and a good information and articulate it, that it worked out really well. And every time I did it, people said, man, you need to keep doing this. And that's what I was doing.
Right. Kind of run down your career up to this point, the drivers you've worked with before and then leading up to Team Penske.
So I started at Dale Earnhardt Incorporated and was very fortunate to essentially spot for every driver there. We had Dale Earnhardt Jr. I spotted for Dale Earnhardt at the 24-hour race in the Corvette. But every driver we had at DEI throughout the only person I didn't spot for that I can recall, I did not spot for Ron Fellows and or Darrell Waltrip, who was there. But Kenny Wallace, Steve Park, Dale Jr., Michael Waltrip, Martin Truex, all those guys, I had the opportunity to at least spot a handful of races for everybody. And then I started spotting for Brad in 2006 when he was over at Keith Coleman Racing, and we formed a relationship that's to this day still a good bond.
What year was those DEI days?
Well, I started there in 1997, and I was all the way through 2010.
Right. What would you say is your biggest achievement as a spotter when it comes to a race win, a championship? What was your biggest achievement?
Anybody in the garage strives for championships. And I've been very fortunate enough as a spotter to win a handful of championships, mainly with Martin Truex Jr. and Dale Jr. But the culmination of anybody in the garage is a Sprint Cup championship, and we were fortunate to do that in 2012 to have the championship here at Team Penske.
Compare spotting in the Cup Series. Like you've done Xfinity, maybe smaller series. Compare what it's like doing it in the Cup Series with the competition and how different it is for you.
The interesting thing is most of your Sprint Cup drivers are very experienced, so they're not looking for the smaller details that a younger or a rookie driver would. I spot for Daniel Hemrick over in the Truck Series, and I give him information in a different way than I might give it for Brad Keselowski. When Martin Truex was in the Xfinity car, was in a Busch car back in those days, I would give him information differently at the time when I was spotting for Michael Waltrip. The younger drivers just need, I think they need a little different information based on trying to improve their ability on how to read the track or even read other drivers. And as a spotter, it's part of our job to be able to read what our driver needs versus actually what he wants.
Right. What do you think is more beneficial, working with one driver for an extended period of time or having that experience of working with a number of drivers in one season?
Well, one of the things as a spotter we have to do is we have to adapt. So working with a number of drivers gives you the ability to adapt. But then as the long term, you want to be hooked up with a driver and form a relationship. A relationship with a driver spotter is a lot like dating. Do we want to date 10 girls, 15 girls at one time? Absolutely, it'd be really cool. But eventually you want to settle down and you want to have a wife and a kid and a house. And that's what spotting is like. You want to be able to have that relationship with the driver that after a number of years, you guys are on the exact same page. And the longer together you can do that, the better your relationship's going to be, whether it's with your driver or your wife.
Yeah. Did you race yourself before?
I did. Yeah. Raced street stocks and pure stocks down in South Florida. I've been in a racing family all my life. My dad was fortunate to actually be associated with the last race in Daytona on the beach back in 1958. So well before I was even born, he was involved in racing. But I grew up in South Florida where my uncle Marty Hanshaw was. We had a lot of good racing memories down there.
Wow. Would you say that racing experience for you, does it help you up there? I know it's a completely different series.
No, I wouldn't say then, because I was racing years ago before I even got into the NASCAR circuit. Was fortunate enough in 2008 we ran the street stock race at Rockingham.
Okay.
And so we had the inside of our car was essentially a DEI car. We had the seat, the headrest, the panel, and everything. And that was interesting to see today's cars. And again, 2008, we're talking 8 years ago. It was interesting now that I was spotting and worked in that car and had a spotter with myself. I actually had a crew chief, Slugger Labby, spotted for me, so we kind of switched roles because I spotted for Slugger over at DEI days. So it was kind of interesting. We swapped roles for us to work together. But it was an interesting aspect to see the difference. I can't say my racing experience really helped the spotting though.
You say your pilot experience does?
Absolutely, piloting really does. Remaining calm, being able to articulate on the radio in as few words as you can, but be very clear. I think that really helps. Back, 20 years ago, there were a lot of pilots on the roof, and right now, I think I'm the only one.
Wow. So you said staying calm. That must help with driver coaching and stuff like that. You said drivers like Brad. I mean, how much driver coaching do they need? Help with little stuff.
Brad doesn't require any of the coaching stuff anymore. He does require a lot of information, and there's a difference. I'm not telling him how to do things or where to do things. It's more about what other drivers have had success doing, and then it's just a matter of Brad wanting to do what he feels best is in the race car. Whereas a Daniel Hemrick, we might, if his entry into one is a really big arc, for instance, he's taking a really big turn into the corners and he's always complaining about being loose, I might bring that to his attention, but I'm not there to correct every single lap. So if we might make a long run during practice and he'll say something along the lines of, man, I'm just loose in, I can't fix it, I'm like you're really, really a big arc into one.
Yeah.
Whereas with Brad, I wouldn't do that at this point in time with his experience level.
Right. Would you say most drivers like having a lot of chatter on the radio?
No.
Or are they quiet?
I think from our radio chatter, on a scale of 1 to 10, I don't know if you could talk anymore.
Yeah.
I'm a 9 or a 10 on our radio channel, and the only reason I do it is because our drivers want it. Back in the day at DEI, Michael Waltrip was the complete opposite. Tony Stewart, complete opposite. Some of those guys grew up in Sprint Cup cars. They've never had a spotter, period. So their information's a lot more quiet, a lot more limited as a need-to-know basis. Whereas Brad, if I'm not talking every single lap of every corner, it would be very unusual, to the point that sometimes, in 2016, they have lap times on their dashboards now. Well, I usually give lap times. Well, I stopped doing lap times, and he got kind of nervous earlier in the year when I wasn't talking on the radio so much. But no, Brad's at the top. I don't know of anybody that gets or wants more information than Brad right now.
Really? You talk about the digital dashboard. Is there any other ways that has changed the spotting game for you?
No, not at all. It doesn't affect us other than the fact that the driver has his own speed, so we might not give the information like lap times. I may not give our own lap time because he already knows it, but I will definitely give lap times in front of us or behind us if somebody's catching us.
Right. Do you still get butterflies before a race? Do you still get nervous?
No, absolutely. During the national anthem, you get that. You do get a butterfly feeling. You get an anxiety level, especially if you start the race with a really good car, or you start coming in the chase races. You definitely get nervous, or any restrictor plate race, you automatically get nervous because you're getting ready to go to work.
You say the plate races are the most nerve-wracking?
They're not the most nerve-wracking. The anxiety level is high because there's so much that's out of our control that you want to be able to control what you can. But the restrictor plate races are the most fun for me because we're more involved at a restrictor plate race than any other track.
Right.
We don't control anything. We're just more involved. It would be as if a pit crew member got to do all the pit stops. Like one guy got to change all the tires on every car. He would be more excited. The anxiety level would be higher there. But it's not that I'm more nervous, but definitely I get more excited.
I got the spot for the ARCA race here last year,
okay,
and the thing that hit me was responsibility.
Yep.
You got all those drivers out there. You're a safety. 100%.
NASCAR has always talked that we are a safety device first. That's our primary concern with the limited head restraints and the visibility out of these race cars nowadays. But when we move forward, we try to get better, and the only way we can get better is to become a performance advantage, and that's being able to keep an eye on not only on your car and where you're doing well at, but being able to look at other cars and see trends on entry levels or pit stops or Pit road has even become so busy now that a spotter has become very important on keeping cars out of wrecks with pitting, and that's what our job is.
Yeah. At least like the Coke 600 last week, I mean, they run over 4 hours. This one was kind of short, but it's still 600 miles. And do you ever get any breaks? Do you really just have to look at that car the whole time and you get a drink of water? I mean, how is it?
You look forward to a yellow flag for sure.
Yeah.
During pit stops. Even during a green flag run, we're going to have close to a minute of a downtime coming down to pit road and getting back up to speed. But no, it's our job is to be on that mic button for the 4 hours that we're there. During caution flags, we do take a drink. We get hydrated before and after, and take a bathroom break if we really absolutely positively have to. But the 6 hours or the 600 miles at Coke, normally lasts 4.5 hours, but we seem like we blew through it in 4 hours last week, so it did seem short.
Yeah. So how's the temperatures up there? I mean, when it's hot out, you guys are the hottest. When it's cold, you guys are the coldest.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. We're outside, but the drivers last week, even as cold as it was 130, 140 degrees in that race car. So I'm from South Florida. I love being hot, so hot temperatures bother me zero bit. Now, cold, I'm the other side of the baby. I overdress on long johns and rain pants and plastic. I overdress when it's cold. But it's part of our job. There are very few surprises. I'm in my 20th year now, standing on the roof watching these cars go around in circles. So very few surprises. You just have to prepare for it. If you're thirsty, you better bring water. If you're cold, you better bring a jacket. Apparel-wise, we're not allowed to wear shorts, but we can wear lighter pants. You can wear shorter socks, things of that nature, T-shirts in our crew jerseys. But from a hot standpoint, I like being hot, and from a cold standpoint, I just try to stay warm.
Right. When it comes to that temperature, what's the craziest moment you've had? Have you ever been hit by snow or hail up there?
We just had it this year. It was in Vegas earlier. We haven't had any hail, but the weather in Vegas this last race in 2016 instantly comes to mind because we had cold temperatures, we had dust storms, we had rain, it was windy. It was like 4 or 5 different seasons going on right in the middle of a race, and that's the one that comes to mind, I think, for me right now.
Yeah. Maybe a funny question, but how many close calls do you get? Do you get a close call during every race?
Defining a close call with trying to wreck, you mean? Probably?
Yeah, just, when it comes to making that clear move.
So the one thing that I try to do is the driver has a decent amount of visibility directly around his car. Mm-hmm. Not very far away, but directly around his car. So I don't know if other spotters do this or not, but I won't tell Brad where he can go. Mm-hmm. I will always tell him where he can't. And that's part of that relationship, and we know. So I'm not going to say clear on the side of being wrong, but I don't have a problem with saying not clear if he is.
Right.
And then Brad can see, and these drivers can normally see out of their car. We always want to be on the side of being wrong by saying not clear. I'm okay with that. If I say still outside and Brad moves up and he's clear, I'm cool with that. But I don't want to be on the other side of being wrong, so that's how it works.
Yeah. When it comes to, say, a track like this with binoculars, how did that really, when did you first realize you had to use those, and how big of an advantage are those to use?
Most of your restrictor plate races, you live off binoculars. A lot of us use a very familiar fixed focus, wide view, kind of a football style. There's no focus on it. It's just it gets you a little bit closer.
Yeah.
And once you started using them, you realize how much helpful they are. We'll use them for sure here at Pocono, getting down into turn 1. Down in turn 1 is probably the hardest top 2 or 3 visibilities down there when they're literally 4, 5, and possibly 6 wide on a restart. Or coming to the checker with a big group of cars. You live off your binoculars. You take care of them as if you take care of your radios.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to the radios, I know for me, I had to use one on here, so I had to use one hand.
Right.
But I believe, don't you guys have some kind of button that you hold with one hand?
We do. I'm very, very involved with my radio headset build-up, microphone setup. It's a unique setup, but we do have a button that's wired off our headset that allows us to keep it in our hand, so we're able to hold on to the binoculars with 2 hands and still have a button in our hand as well.
How much does the game change when, say, you're in an accident, you come into the garage, you get back out, your car's maybe torn up a little bit, you're off the pace. You as a spotter, the game kind of changes a little bit because you're not really racing for position, you're off the pace. How's that really change it for you?
It's interesting because the better you run, Clayton Hughes spots for Martin Truex, and they led 588 of 600 miles last week. his job was easy because his car was really good. The further back you fall in the pack, the worse your car runs, and the more tore up it is, you work harder as a spotter. Because now you have such speed variances when your car's tore up, and maybe the quarter panel's been beat up and banged up, and they're not exactly the way out of the mirror the driver is. So the worse you run, excluding a restrictor plate race, the worse you run, the harder it is as a spotter to spot. Your job picks up its intensity.
Right.
The better you run, if you're always moving forward, or if you're leading the race, your job is essentially very simple. So being tore up out of the garage, even though you're 10, 15 laps down, your job actually got harder.
What's it like for you when there's an incident out there, somebody blows a motor, the big one starts up, and how does it change for you? Because your visibility even can be affected, and just what do you say in a point like that?
At that point in time, again, you're trying, it's not so much the driver needs to know, oh, hey, look, Casey Kane driving the Farmers Insurance Chevrolet blew a motor, and he's putting oil all down in turn one, right? That took a long time to say.
Yeah.
You're trying to get that driver to slow down as quickly as he can and what lane is available. So back it down, go high. And then after things are settled down, what happened, then you can say the motor blew up, it's got oil on the bottom, who was it, things of that nature. But initially, you're trying to get your driver to slow down as quickly as possible without getting run over from behind. So that's the other thing, too, is when just because you are doing your job, another spotter or another driver might not get slowed down as quickly. So during the whole time you're trying to get your driver to slow down, you're still watching behind and just trying to keep the communication as concise and as minimal as possible so that once we get slow, then we can go to the detailed information.
Yeah. Is Brad really on top of that kind of stuff? Does he want to know, say if a wreck happens, does he say, hey, who wrecked or what happened?
100%, absolutely. He wants to know what happened, a lot like aviation incidents. When we go back and we look at a recap of an accident history, we put it in our banks to try to keep preventing it from happening before. So if somebody had an issue on the track, if it was a tire issue, if it was a track issue, he wants to know to see if it's useful to him. It's not up to me to decide whether the information is useful to him, so I just give him the information and he puts it in his bank, and then he can utilize it the way he wants to.
What's the camaraderie like on the spotter stand? You've been doing it for a long time.
Yep.
I bet you know a lot of the people, so how does that help? Do you guys try to, I don't know about help each other out, but you know those guys pretty good.
100%. We have a very close knit group. There's 40 of us now this year for 2016, and there's probably, of the 40 today, there's probably 35 that I go to lunch with on a monthly basis, here or there. Sometimes we stay at same airports or same hotels. We ride together in the same cars. My biggest competitors last 2 years ago, we had a dust up there at Texas Motor Speedway, and it was Jeff Gordon and Brad. Well, I ride the track with Jeff's spotter, Eddie DeHunt. So we have very close relationships. We're all on the same page. We're definitely competitive. If my driver gets hit by one of their drivers, I'm going, what do you say? What happened? We're not up there to place blame by any means, but our friendships are very tight. If we can give rides, if we can give information, when we're listening to NASCAR, and if there's one to go, and they didn't hear, hey, did he? He'll tap me. Was it one to go?
Yeah.
And so we're all up there doing the same job. It is a very, very tight-knit group, and most of those guys up there, again, I've been doing it now for 19 years, and some of those guys have been doing it for 25-plus years, so there's a lot of experience on the roof right now.
Do you work closely with Tab Boyd? Is that really somebody that you really talk to, kind of like how drivers talk to each other to work together a little bit? Are you the same?
Well, Tab and I obviously have a co-worker relationship here at Team Penske, but ironically enough, way back years ago, we worked with different teams. I actually flew Tab around on one of the airplanes that we coexisted with another Busch team, with our Busch team at DEI. So well before I even worked with Tab was actually one of the passengers that I flew around for a whole season.
Wow.
So we had that relationship there. And then we were fortunate enough to where we actually raced together in 2008, the street stock race at Rockingham. So we do have a relationship. His wife is now becoming an employee at the truck team that I work for Brad Keselowski Racing. So there's always that relationship. But as far as working together, the only time we work directly together is at a restrictor plate race, when teammates are a big portion of when you're going to pit and when you're not going to pit. But other than that, we're kind of, once the race starts, we're on our own. We do share rides back and forth to the hotel because the three of us, or the two of us, not only Tab but Josh Williams, who spots for Ryan Blaney, we do all three series. So we share a lot of car rides to and from the hotels. So there's that part of the relationship as well.
Yeah. Do you see like doing it in the Xfinity and the Truck Series, maybe on the same weekend? Does that really prep you? You've been doing it a long time. Do you really need that kind of build up to Sunday, that extra on track time?
It's not that I really need it as a competitor, and again, being involved in racing for so long, you want it. You desire that. You desire the need to be involved with the activity. Because Brad doesn't run all the Xfinity races, Joey's here at Pocono. We're going to run a couple of races in the future. You don't like being at the racetrack and not being involved. So if there's an opportunity to be involved at a racetrack, you want to be there, and that's how it works. By doing all 3 series.
Right. So say your driver wins a race, Keselowski winning a couple this year. What's it like for you? Do you miss some of the victory lane celebration? How long does it take you to get down there?
It's interesting. From a celebration standpoint, obviously those guys get right to victory lane, and one of the things we miss is the champagne shower, which I don't mind, because we have to get home and I still have to fly the airplane going home. But we're able to get across the track relatively easily and get there and congratulate the guys and enjoy definitely the thrill of victory is still there, and then take some pictures, and then by that time we're ready to go home and start the weekend over again.
Right. Compare like a track like Bristol. You're just on top of the track, you see everything, compared to a place like Pocono, Indianapolis. How big of a difference is it?
It's a big difference. Bristol, you spot, and a lot of spotters will say this, similar as you would a restrictor plate race, as dumb as that sounds. But Bristol and a place like Talladega and Daytona is all about relative movement. Mm-hmm. All the cars are essentially going the same speed. You're looking for one car that comes out of place, like a porcupine sticks his head out. You're looking for that one little thing that happens to be able to, because action happens quickly. A place like Pocono, you're looking way ahead of time, okay? Because the activity here, there's such a long straightaways and tight corners. You're looking ahead of time, like the exit of Dover. Turn 2 exit of Dover, things happen so quick that you need to look way ahead, because by the time that one car hits the wall, your driver's already in it. So it's a completely different mentality of where you're looking. Quite honestly, as a spotter, if you spend a lot of time directly looking at your car, you're really not doing your job.
Really? And how different is this place with 3 different turns? You say you see if they're arcing into the corner. This place has 3 different turns. Is it a little tougher to follow how they're racing?
From a spotter standpoint, not really. We can definitely see the arc into one and who's arcing and who's not. Where the cars are shifting down the front stretch, we can hear them downshifting into 3 and upshifting down the front straightaway. And then the tunnel turn, that's kind of the area that gets wadded up really quick. So you're paying attention to cars exiting, getting loose, and slamming in that outside wall. So it's a unique racetrack, but from a standpoint of the uniqueness of the corners really doesn't affect how a spotter spots. But each corner, we just look for something different going on.
Right. What do you say is the most difficult track to work on? Is Pocono there? Is it a short track?
One of the tracks that's difficult is Indy. And what makes Indy difficult is it's such a large track. And where we stand, we actually are on the inside of the racetrack on top of the pagoda. So we only see half the track. And working with 2 spotters is automatically more difficult because we have to worry about transitioning from one spotter to the next. But even the visibility on the pagoda is limited, and we're always dancing around somebody else trying to see the visibility. So it's one of the harder tracks. Phoenix is difficult because of where they put us, we're down in a very low section in turns 1 and 2. The low lane in 3 and 4 at Phoenix from a spotter stand is non-existent. We don't even see the cars. So that makes it difficult. And then Watkins Glen, because again, you're at a racetrack where we can't see the whole track. We're relying on up to 4 or 5 spotters around that facility. So they're difficult for different reasons, but it mostly has to do with us not being in control of our visibility around that track.
Doing it on a road course, 4 or 5 people, is it kind of like, MON, how they do it? Like somebody be talking this turn, just when they stop talking, you pick it up, or is it a little more arithmetic than that?
So no, Watkins Glen is, I'm not going to say relatively easy, but essentially you talk to the car when you can see them. And what's nice is we can't see this car at the same time. So the guy on the front stretch, which is the primary spotter, he loses the car going up the S's. Well, right when I lose the car is when the other spotter takes over, because he sees them, and then all the way down the backstretch. So it works out really good at Watkins Glen. Now at Indy, we definitely have definitive handover points, and that's a little more crucial where the handoff points are, whether you're on the front stretch or the backstretch. But there's definitely a timing thing like an MRN that we deal with. But Watkins Glen kind of does itself because we don't see the car.
Yeah. As I said, it's a dangerous job. There's a lot on the line, but there's a lot of rewards. You're part of a championship-winning team.
Sure.
I'm guessing that overloads the danger aspect of it?
You know, the danger aspect, you said earlier about spotting and flying. You know, when I'm the front guy up front flying an airplane around, I have passengers behind me. It's the same responsibility that I feel as a spotter. The difference being is I'm on the roof. I have no danger in my job if I mess up. I only have a danger to the drivers that are around my driver, possibly. Now, in an airplane, you have the danger of the passengers, but yourself as well. So the danger level is a little bit less. It's not so much self-imposed danger as the responsibility. You never want to be the guy that messes up, because then you mess up, there's a good chance not only are you going to mess up, you know, our driver or his opportunity and all the guys that have worked on that race car so hard, but you're going to mess up somebody else's team as well. And that's a little bit of the difference. It's not so much the threat of something happening to myself, but you definitely don't want to mess up their day.
Do you get noticed by fans, like big, giant Brad Keselowski fans? Do they know you?
Well, you know, we have, with social media nowadays, we have a lot of interaction available on Twitter. I'm grateful to have, you know, I don't know, 18,000 followers. It's really cool. But a lot of the spotters, you know, some of the spotters are known. TJ Majors is probably the best known spotter. He has T-shirts, door bumper clear shirts, which are available online, tjmajors.com. There's my advertisement for the day. So, but some of the spotters are known, you know, not as much as the drivers, of course, but the interesting part about it is nobody knows our faces.
Yeah.
They've listened to us for years. But without social media, they now have the ability to put a face with the voice. And I have been called out in public. Somebody has turned around and said, I've listened to you for 10 years, I recognize your voice. So it works out that way, but not as often as the drivers.
Have you seen yourself on Radioactive, the Fox Sports?
I have not. You know, I don't get a chance to watch the presentation of a race. The only thing I do during the race is I'm fortunate enough to be able to listen to the race broadcast, which is MRN, the broadcast here like at Pocono. So I listen to that during the weekend, during the race. But I go home. You were so busy during the week with the other responsibilities that I don't have a chance to go back and DVR it. Right. So normally a Twitter fan or my wife will say something about, hey, you said something dumb on the radio, which happens once a week, but you get used to it.
Yeah. Do you wish that spotters did get more recognition? Because I know, like, when somebody wins, a lot of it goes to the crew chief, a lot of it goes to the driver. Do you wish they mentioned the spotter as being a part of the winning team?
You know, I've always talked about, again, I correlate spotting and piloting, okay? Most of the time, a pilot can only do his job, right? Because anything less, and it gets noticed. Most of the time, when a pilot gets talked about, it's in the paper and it says survived by wife and kids. It's because he made a mistake.
Yeah.
A spotter is like a place kicker. He can only get the ball through the uprights. A spotter can only do his job. I'm willing to give up any recognition to get rid of any blame. And as we're kind of behind the scenes, and that's how we need to be, I think we have a definitively important role. But as far as having my face splashed all over, I mean, you're interviewing me. It's not like I'm Matthew McConaughey or Tom Selleck. I don't need the recognition. I appreciate the fact that my team wants me doing the job, and knowing that there's only 40 of us on the roof that can do the job, and I'm one of those 40. And that's a pretty cool fraternity to be in, even though we all don't have hero cards.
Right. A fun question, but have you ever lost, maybe early in your career?
No, happened this year, absolutely.
Really?
So early in my career, I spotted for Dale and Dale Jr. in the Corvette. These were identically prepared Corvettes. The only thing different was the car number on the side.
Yeah.
And we're spotting at 24-hour race, so we take 4-hour shifts. Lost that Corvette all the time. Because ironically enough, in that series, you didn't spot ahead, you spotted behind, because you had to find the prototype cars that were catching our car. So it was all about braking. But this year, we ran a different paint scheme, and we went down to turn 3, and I looked ahead to 4, and I came back to where I thought my car was, and it wasn't there. But there was a mob of cars, and Brad had gotten loose, and everybody gotten around him. We went down to turn 3 single file.
Yeah.
We come off of turn 4, and we're in the middle of this pack. And I'm like, I completely lost. It happens to every spotter at least once or twice each series during the year for sure. It's something we don't like to admit, but like I said earlier, if you're looking at your car during the race, chances are you're not doing your job correctly. Right. So you have to come off of it and go forward or go rearwards, depending on what track you're at, and then go back to your car. It's why our paint schemes are so critical. Marketing thinks having different paint schemes every week is really cool, but a spotter doesn't like it too much.
Yeah. Do you look at series like sports car racing and maybe F1 where the cars are almost identical? Talk about that experience of doing that with Dale and and really how that got your interest into this?
Well, I was doing it before. I was actually spotting for the NASCAR side of things before I did the 24-hour race, and it was a one-off race. I've only done one. A lot of the spotters now from that series, they realize how important the spotters are. So a lot of the NASCAR spotters go down doing for the Sebring race and the 24-hour race, and they realize because of the experience level on top that they're actually gaining a performance advantage. So it's probably 10, 15 now NASCAR's top spotters are going down to the 24-hour race or Sebring. In fact, I believe one of our spotters, Chris Moniz, actually won the Sebring race this year, which is really good. So I was afforded the opportunity because I was working for Dale, and we've actually flew down in one airplane. And one of the opportunities that I had was to go spot for him, and it was difficult from the standpoint of. Again, the same cars, painted the exact same color, and the spotting then was a little different in the fact that we were just trying to keep. You didn't want to get run over by the much faster prototype style cars, and we were in the Corvettes.
Did you have a spot for the Indy 500?
I did not. I'd like to. I believe one of our spotters, Jason Rainier, actually went up there last week and spotted for the IndyCar race. I've talked to Team Penske about the opportunities, but because I'm full-time here, the opportunities don't afford that to go spot. I'd like to spot the Indy 500. It's really the only race from the Indy side of things I'd like to spot from the prestige of it.
Do the double?
I'd love to do it. I think it'd be awesome. Yeah, I'd love to do it.
Yeah.
100%. Sign me up.
Yeah. Have you ever done an IndyCar race?
No, I've never done any IndyCar racing. No. Done quite a few doubles as far as not in the same day. You know, we did both complete series. We'd fly back and forth from, we did Sonoma and Milwaukee, for instance. That was a good one, to fly back and forth every day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That was a lot of fun. I enjoy those kind. I don't know if I could do it every weekend, but for sure I like doing again, you're being more involved, and as a racer, that's what you want to be.
Yeah. The final question, do you really get a competitive drive when you're out there? Do you really feel like maybe you're on the racetrack with them? Do you really get that competitive drive when you're up there? You really want to beat those cars that are out there?
Yeah, no, 100%. When you're racing for position, your adrenaline, if it doesn't go up, you shouldn't be in. If your adrenaline doesn't go up when you're side by side with somebody, you should find another job. Right. Most of us in the garage, 95% plus, have either worked on them or driven them or been a part of racing for so long that it's our nature. We are competitive in the garage. We're competitive on the roof as these guys behind the wheel. Certain drivers like to be whipped a little more to try to pump them up, and most of our spotters try to keep our drivers flatlined. I always compare what we do as like elevator music, just to keep a nice calm tone to everything. But absolutely 100% do you get the adrenaline rush when you're coming down to 5 to go and you're battling side by side. Last week or 2 weeks ago for the All-Star race, we were jumping down trying to catch our teammate Joey, and you're getting geared up and you feel yourself getting the level of adrenaline. Absolutely.
Yeah. Totally appreciate your time.
Awesome, man.
This is a great time.
Thank you very
much.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.